Welcome to Politics News Wolf US channel. The war between Ukraine and Russia is escalating for Russians who make inhuman missile attacks on the first days of the new year. What goes around comes around. Chaos within the Russian army is escalating due to increasingly successful attacks by Ukrainian. It has been determined that hot clashes have increased in the Svir and BMO front lines in the east of Ukraine. Wagner Group forces launched an offensive towards Snaora. The mercenary group continued its attempts to advance north towards Bakhmut from positions near Krystyka Oyaka, and up on the outskirts of Bakhmut. The Ukrainian General Staff stated that Russian troops carried out attacks near Avdiivka just north of Dane City, and Marka southwest of Dane City. In response to these attacks, Ukrainian troops carried out attacks on Russian vehicles and infantry. North of Sodar, it was determined that the Russian forces established positions in this region. Ukrainian artillery stopped a rotation of Russian infantry near Pavlivka, especially on the Bakhmut front. The Ukrainian forces successfully repulsed the Russian army and the attacks by the Russian army. The Russian army suffered heavy losses due to the numerous attacks of the Ukrainian forces. The Russian army, which was badly injured by the Ukrainian attacks, received a major blow with the Kremlin statement. Ukrainian forces destroyed a facility used as a base for mobilized troops in the city of Makha in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine. This attack went down in history as one of the deadliest attacks on Russian forces since the invasion of Ukraine began on February 20. Ukrainian forces struck a military facility with hundreds of newly mobilized soldiers with 4 HIMARS rockets carrying high explosive warheads. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense said at least 400 soldiers were killed and 300 wounded. However, the Russian Ministry of Defense stated in its first state statement that the number of soldiers who lost their lives was 63. However, in the subsequent statements of the Russian Defense Ministry, it was seen that this number was revised to 80. In addition to the magnitude of the explosion at the Russian military base, this attack was marked by the chain of mistakes made by the soldiers in the Russian army and the wrong construction. The Kremlin made a scandalous statement about the attack. Russia's defense ministry blamed its own soldiers for the Ukraine attack, saying that they had lost the by Russian soldiers, allowing Ukraine to track and determine the behavior of the soldiers' locations. The use of mobile phones by Russian soldiers on Ukrainian soil is equivalent to sharing the location of their headquarters with Ukrainian troops. It is never normal for the Kremlin to go crazy in this situation. This attack, which stunned Moscow, was a great lesson to the Russian troops in this region. Maybe the Russian army was right to do something on New Year's Eve. Many of them were meeting with their families and relatives. Some of them were browsing the social media and sharing the situation, etc. Many of the drunken Russian soldiers were perhaps unaware of what they were doing, but it was too late and they were located close to the Bakhmut region of military headquarters. Frankly, in this case, we can say that even though Ukrainian HIMARS attacked Russian soldiers who blew up their headquarters, it was a huge fiasco, and it wasn't the first time. It had happened many times before. Russian soldiers received a bulky gift from Ukraine when they shared their geographical location. As we mentioned before, this war is an intelligence war, and the size of the sharpest and clearest intelligence is really on hand. Russian war correspondent Andrei Redko reporting that 80% of Ukrainian attacks were associated with the use of military means of unsecured mobile communications. The Ukrainian army constantly monitors the activities of mobile devices and creates coordinates for subsequent. In addition, Redko claimed that the Ukrainian army did not have the necessary complex to monitor mobile activities, but data related to mobile activities were supplied to Ukraine by Western countries. At the same time, Redko warned the Russian soldiers who were on the territory of Ukraine. Redko warned that Russian soldiers should not use mobile phones even if they are miles away from Ukrainian forces. The reason for this is that the Ukrainian forces can attack the Russian army without any distance with their US-made HIMARS. Sahi CTI spokesman for the Eastern Group of the Ukrainian Armed Forces stated that the use of the telephone is not the main reason. CTI stated that it's wrong to deploy large groups of mobilized soldiers in dangerous situations that are not highly trained and uncoordinated. CTI stated that the Russian Ministry of Defense aims to put the blame on someone as an excuse for deploying faulty soldiers and in order to acquit themselves. CTI Fatih underlined that the biggest reason for the attack was that the Russian army did not deploy its military manpower in a secret manner, and the main reason was not the use of telephones. CTI stated that the Ukrainian army took advantage of the stupidity of the Russian forces, and the military mobility of the Russian army was easily detected and destroyed. Another exemplary attack associated with mobile phones occurred in Kherson. After a Russian soldier posted on social media, Ukrainian forces attacked a building used to house Russian special forces near Sahi in the Russian-occupied part of the Khan region. The same soldier helped the Ukrainian forces to evaluate the attack with posts he made after with the exception of the explosion near Sahi, the use of telephones in the Russian army generally indicates an effort to contact the families of Russian soldiers. It is known that the mobilized soldiers met with their families for limited periods for a long time. Soldiers who want to let their families know that they are alive tend to use mobile phones. However, Russian soldiers, while connecting with their families via mobile phones, are also preparing their own. Besides the use of telephone by Russian soldiers, there are many Ukrainian partisans in the Donetsk region. Pro-Ukrainian partisans report Russian military movements at various points in the Donetsk region to Ukrainian forces, helping Ukrainian forces launch attacks on precise and accurate coordinates. This attack has made it clear to us that the Russian forces do not learn from their fundamental mistakes that endanger the safety and security of their soldiers in occupied. After the attack of the Ukrainian troops on the Russian headquarters, there was a second explosion that increased the intensity of the explosion that occurred in the headquarters. The ammunition depot established next to the Russian soldiers exploded with the effect of the attack. At the same time, there was a large amount of equipment belonging to the Russian forces in the region. The biggest mistake made by the Russian forces recently was to build ammunition deep in depots at the points where the military manpower is concentrated. Small-scale attack by Ukrainian forces has the potential to have greater consequences than anticipated throughout the war. Ukrainian forces used M142 high-mobility artillery rocket systems to destroy Russian ammunition depots and command centers in occupied Ukrainian territory. Due to Russia's dependence on rail transport, most of its logistics centers are built at key rail junctions or endpoints. The Russian army made great efforts to camouflage these ammunition depots. The Russian forces' lack of camouflage made it easier for Ukraine to target. After the effectiveness of the HIMARS systems became clear, the Russian authorities decided to move their ammunition depots out of HIMARS range. However, as the Ukrainian forces had traveled a long distance, there was no room left to move Russian ammunition depots. The Russians are stuck on this issue. The situation of the Russian forces is clear proof that the Russian army has entered a phase of ignoring the bans and disobeying orders in the Russian army causes the Russian armed forces to lose a large number of soldiers. Soldiers at the front long ago lost hope that the war would be won. Now, the Russian Defense Ministry statement blaming its own soldiers pointed out that the Kremlin officials also lost their belief that the war would be won. The only purpose of the Russian soldiers who could not communicate with their families for a very long time was to reunite with their families without losing theirs. These soldiers can perform any task to survive the war in the coming days. We should be surprised to hear that Russian soldiers are receiving instructions from Ukraine. Thank you for watching the video.
هاوپەیمانی نێودەوڵەتی پابەندە بەوەی بەردەوام بێت لە پشتگیریکردنی هێزی پێشمەرگە لارکەکانیشمان کە بریتیە لە ڕاوێژ و مەشق و ڕاهێنان بەردەوام دەبین.